Hola community, welcome to another episode of Blender Today Live, the weekly show where we see what's new in Blender. And what is new? Well, the number is new. Many people freaking out because the Blender version has changed. The number has changed. Nothing else has changed. You've probably seen it. If you follow the development builds, you've probably seen that in the Blender.org website, on the section where you can get the experimental versions, you're gonna see the beta. Yes, that is the big news. That should be the big news. Blender 3.0 alpha is out, but it's just the number change. It also shows a little bit of how Blender and all the open source softwares work, right? Once you start developing the software, you have to change the number so you don't get so all the files. When you save a blend file, for example, the version that you're using, the Blender version, gets stored in that blend file. So that's how the developers can keep track of, like, okay, this blend file is in this version, so it needs these features. And if I open it in the future or in the past, even like if I open now with a future Blender version, Blender should know, or any software should know, what to do with those features, you know, like replace, if it's a feature, a setting, and then, okay, what would be the default value if this feature didn't exist? And that's what it means when we talk about forward compatibility and backwards compatibility, with which Blender it's super good at. So yeah, 3.0, nothing has not much has changed yet. There is still many months ahead. It was just the alpha. So what you should do as a user, if you want to help Blender, is to, whoa, it's overexposed. Yeah, it's gonna get dark soon, no worries. What you should do is test Blender 2.93, the beta, or even the alpha. Just report issues, report anything that you find. Even it's okay if it's in the alpha or in the beta, because at the moment, as I mentioned, they're both pretty much the same, so not much has changed. But yeah, report the issues so we don't have to deal with 2.93.1.2. However, it is the LTS release. It's gonna be an LTS, so long-term support. So we can expect 2 years of updates. And if 2.83 is of any reference, there is already 2.83.12 or so. If you go to long-term support in blender.org, you're gonna find here 2.13, version 13. So yes, Blender 3, it's a time to make changes, maybe more bold changes, maybe more breaking changes in a way. Obviously, ideally, there shouldn't be any kind of breaking changes. So far, requirements like if your computer can run 2.9, 3.0 is gonna be fine. So far, everything should be okay. How do I report a bug? That is a very good question. You can either go from inside Blender, or actually you can just, if you YouTube for how to report bug, you're gonna find a video. Whoa, here, here, the blue one with the Blender logo in it. I explain it over there, and you're gonna find links. Otherwise, from within Blender Alpha, you're gonna find in the help menu, report a bug. It's a link where you can just report the bug. It's gonna open the browser and it's gonna include some information, this information about your computer, but it's transparent. It's nothing hidden here. This is literally what is sharing. My graphics card, my operating system, and the Blender version that I was using. That's it. There's no kind of personal data. Well, you can read it here. It's not it's nothing hidden. So yeah, another announcement that I have to make for this week is that later this week, if you have visited the Blender Foundation YouTube channel, or if you follow Blender on Twitter, you may have seen this tweet. Let's celebrate together on Friday, this Friday, so in like 4 days, the 10th anniversary of Cycles. So yes, Brecht, the creator of Cycles, Sergey, the awesomer of Cycles, making it awesomer. We're gonna be together. We're gonna be talking about Cycles and its past and its future. So yes, super exciting. Let's move on. What other announcement I have to make? I think I'm pretty good with this so far, and we can already move into what's new in Blender. However, I'd like to take a moment to share the splash screen. If you've seen the thumbnail of this video before going live, it's the artwork that is now present in the beta. So that's another good reason to use Blender 2.93 beta. Not only is more stable, but also includes this amazing artwork by Erindale. He is been making these super crazy setups here, as you can see in the past. He made this one look very painterly. It's so cool. But look at those. Look at that setup. So this blend file, a lot more clean up and organized and with explanations, is going to be included in Blender.org, just like any other splash screen in the past. I don't know if you knew that, but in the demo file section of Blender.org/download, you're going to find the blend files for the previous splash screens, at least the most recent ones. The creators of these splash screen images, they are not only awesome enough to make those, make the artwork, but also to share the files, and that is amazing. So Erindale is not the exception. He's actually going to share this file. So we're actually adding, hey, he's on the chat. What's up? Hey, here. So yeah, very exciting, and sorry for putting more work in your on your desk, but it's super cool. You should check. I'm linking to the YouTube channel and the Twitter account, where you can learn more actually how these things are done, because not only makes artwork but explains it in a very soothing voice. All right, so yeah, I had this tab open just for a little bit of hype, because you know Blender 2.x, it's been for more than 20 years. Is anybody younger than 20 years in the live stream? Raise your hand, put an emoji. If you are younger than 20 years, 21, 22, your Blender 2.x is older than you. So Blender 3, it's kind of a big deal. Switching to Blender 3, it is a big deal. So yes, I am 15, I am 17. Holy crap. Okay, there is people that are younger than I've been using Blender. Next year is gonna be 20 years that I've been using Blender. So there is quite a lot of people. Okay. You can stop now. I'm gonna cry. You know what? Instead of crying, let's get happy with all the new stuff that we get to see in Blender 2.93. Some of the setting, the stuff that I'm gonna share now are about 2.93, and some of them are for Blender 3. But just because the window for adding new stuff, it's closed for 2.93. So let's get started. First of all, with the nodes section. The nodes section. In the nodes, okay. First, this is for 2.93. Geometry nodes is now a first-class citizen because it has its own. The last step was to have its own workspace. So you're gonna see now that in here, next to compositing, there is geometry nodes. That includes a spreadsheet, a 3D view, and the node editor. So you can start right away. You open Blender with the cube, go to geometry nodes, bam, add new, and you are ready to go with the modifiers here, the outliner, the spreadsheet, which is awesome. There are even new features there, so super easy to get started with that. And now we enter the new node alert. I should have a sound for like a new node alert, like a new node, switch node. Okay, the baby steps for the switch node. It's there. you can, people, if you come from other software, then yeah, it might feel a bit limiting, but it's a first step. So let's see how it looks. We have here a cube, and let's just add it here. So yeah, is Pablo using Linux? Yes, for the last 16 years or more, I've been using Linux. The node is a utility. So you have got utility, switch, click on it, and now we can switch between two stuff. What kind of stuff? What types? Collections, geometry, objects, color, in string, vectors, booleans, integers, and float. Should I say integer instead of int? Like there's plenty of space. Then in geometry, for example, I can actually just connect this, and let's go from a cube to a, I miss a Suzanne here. Let's go with an icosphere. So okay, and that is all. Now you can switch between each one. Again, as I mentioned, this is the baby steps, so it's basically a boolean now, it's a toggle. In the future, the idea is that you can have as many options to switch as possible, as infinite basically, and an index, so you can choose which input to choose from. So yeah, right now it's limiting. It's only one on and off, and let's see if it actually works. Let's try, what is an on and off? What an easy on and off? Is viewport. That's an easy one. So here, so if it's a viewport, it's gonna be icosphere, so true, and then otherwise false. So if I render now, I should see a cube. Yes, because render, it's cube. If it's a viewport, then icosphere. Super simple. So yeah, it's in baby steps again, but there are more to come. So let's actually give credit where credit is due. There, Ethan, right? Yeah, Ethan something made this. There is a patch already, and there are improvements to be done also, because at the moment it's it can be improved, especially on performance, because right now it's computing even all the inputs, not only the one that it actually like in this case the cube or the sphere is actually computing both. So yes, careful with that. Let's continue. How's the chat? Almost 1,000 viewers. Yeah, I know, you know, calling a video of Blender 3 is a big clickbait, but don't believe in the clickbait, because there's nothing new in Blender. It's funny though. I mean, I mean, if you can fit a long video which is talking about the future of Blender 3, it's pretty exciting. We can talk about asset browser is going to be in Blender 3, for example. Or if you want to learn more, actually, you can go to developer.blender.org and go here, 3.0. And you can see some, it's going to be pretty empty, but at least you get the dates, the main things. Let's see. The improvements. Okay, so I mentioned new workspace, new switch node, and now improvements to the features, to the already existing features. So now you can apply, you can apply modifiers. So you can make a, so for example, let's go here. So my original mesh, it's a cube, but actually I'm converting it here. And if I apply the modifiers, so for example, if I go here and then I do Ctrl+A or click here, apply, now it is applied. So now I have the result of my geometry nodes. I lost the procedurality of it, but it's still useful to do it sometimes. The instances, so when you are duplicating other objects, now they are gonna become real, like real meshes. It can be heavy, but you have to know in advance, right? If you have an object that is instancing a bunch of objects, then yeah, keep in mind that it's gonna be heavy. So let's see the next. Oh, this one, I like this one because not only affects it affects other parts of nodes, so not only geometry nodes, but it's also a quality of life improvement. tooltip for group input properties. Yep. Now, if I don't know why this website is so slow to zoom in. There you go. Yeah, tooltips. So you can specify on a node group, for example, when you are making your own custom modifiers with like name and type and so on and value. Now you can write a little message. So when you mouse over, for example, custom collection, then you mouse over the input, now you can read actually what is it doing. So it's super nice for like for your own nodes or for add-ons or that release assets. For example, if you want to release assets on the web and you want to make sure people know or have an idea what that does, yes, super handy. The other improvement, another quality of life improvement. I think we entered the quality of life department. This one, oh, by the way, that was by Fabian. Thank you, Fabian. This improvement by Hans, it's about adding search. Let's see it in action. I don't have a lot of things to talk about today, so I have some time. Let's see it in action. Actually, let's open a file. Let's see there. I like more this album. By the way, I always share the musician, but the music you're listening to, if you get to hear, by Thayan Maja. For example, here, let's say you want to search for an attribute. Remember that not even that long ago, like some weeks ago, a couple months ago, you couldn't search. You had to type. You have to remember how to type. Actually, 2.92 went out like that. Just you need to type the values. So now you can, since a few weeks, you can search. And now in the search, it's super smart because it tells you all kinds of data. It tells you, for example, the domain, you know, where does it belong? So the material index, you know that you can't apply material indices or like the materials to edges or to vertices, right? They belong on a face. They're part of a face domain. Also, what type are they? They're integers. So now you can see, actually the color is not very readable when you have the selection. But yeah, you can see face normal is a vector, UV map is a 2D vector, position is a vector, booleans you can see. So very, very useful, especially when you are, when you have maybe with the same name or a very similar name in different domains, it can be tricky to remember where was that. So super, super useful. Thank you, Hans, for working on this. Nice UX improvements, quality of life improvement. The next improvement, it's mainly under the hood. It's just mainly under the hood. It's the use virtual arrays in internal attribute API. So yeah, super like hardcore internal nodes, but no regressions can be expected. Here, it does come with one improvement for users. The attribute API can convert the data type on write now. This is especially useful when writing to built-in attributes like material index, which wasn't possible before. So it's improving the workflow. And another update, but now actually is it another section? No, let's leave it here. The section is the spreadsheet, which at the moment, yes, is very tied to geometry nodes, but in the future, I'm so excited. In the future, you're gonna be able to see all the objects, collections, and all kinds of data in the spreadsheet. So imagine having all your lamps in the spreadsheet, and you can toggle the values from there. There are add-ons that do that. There is even a Blender built-in add-on that does that. But it's not as nice as the spreadsheet, where you can search and you're gonna have filtering for the horizontal rows or the columns. You can sort. It's gonna be super awesome. Such as this comment by Jack Luke: breadcrumbs and node pinning. Yes, breadcrumbs. What does it mean? It means, have you read Hansel and Gretel? Or not? The breadcrumbs. So it's a little, whoops, a wild asset browser appeared. Yeah, so basically when you click on a, for example, in the node, so to see what are the values in here, now you can read the entire breadcrumb. So the object is called, well, in this case it's not very handy. Okay, let's go with grid. So this one is called grid. So it's a bit less confusing. Let's pick something easier. So let's add a attribute here. So I have the grid. The modifier is called geometry nodes, but it can be like whatever, right? And now it doesn't update. Doesn't update. No. But it, it's a, I thought it would have the name of the node, not the type of the node. Okay. Maybe it should have the name, right? Because if you have multiple geometry nodes, then that would be confusing, right? Like if you have two, you could have what if maybe it's just not updating. Maybe it's an updating issue. And then go here. Oh yeah, it's just an updating. Okay, it's just missing an update. It is actually using the name of the modifier and then the name of the node that you have selected. So you can actually like see at a glance where you are. You can also click to collapse in case it becomes too long, and so you have the object and the node that you have selected. So now you can also pin, by the way. You can pin that, make another, and then make another spreadsheet so you can compare stuff. You can collapse the view. We need a view menu here so we can actually collapse the footer without actually having to right click. But let's say I have another, like a color ramp, and I want to see the color ramp here. I see the color ramp here and the attribute color map here. So two different spreadsheet nodes in one. Oh, and I closed it, but the name has changed for the point or the vertices. So it used to be called point here in the header where you wanted to see for the attributes of the edge, face, vertex, corner, the domain, basically. It used to be called point, and it was a bit confusing because it also means the vertex, and because in Blender we call everything a vertex, even though it could be called a point. I think it's better for meshes to be called vertex, and then for point clouds we can call it point. So it's easy to follow. All right, time to move into the next sections. Actually, this one is related. It's for the user interface updates, but this one is related to node stuff. When you drag and drop from the asset browser or from other places into the node editor, for example, did you know that a few weeks ago you can drag and drop an object into the node geometry nodes editor and it will add a object info. You can drag and drop a collection and it will make a collection info. You can drag and drop a, you name it, a texture. So yeah, if I have a texture, then it would work. So if I have a texture here and I see it in the Blender file, I should see it. Where is the textures? Here. I should add a texture and then it adds an attribute sample texture. So that is super cool. The case is that sometimes this is very predictable, right? We know the type, so we know it works. But sometimes if you have a asset browser and you have some specific type of node tree, maybe a shader node tree, and you want to drop it here, it wouldn't complain. It wouldn't tell you like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Go rethink your choices, your life choices. Now it actually tells you. There is this update by Julian that made it so you can see what is going on. It's gonna announce it, a report like this is not a compositor node tree, or nesting a group inside of itself is not allowed. Before it didn't used to tell you anything. It was just very quiet about it. And another improvement, well, this is more slash modeling, is UI slash modeling. The snap behavior, the snap tool has been refactored, so you can expect more news in that area. So far, it has one change. Bye, Germano, on a Saturday night. What are you doing on a Saturday? Anyway, Germano made it so now the snap to cage, it snaps to the cage geometry, so it's more visual. So you see basically what you, it's not the original geometry, it's the result of all the modifiers, for example, the cage. So yeah, it's gonna feel more predictable. And now, yes, actually it is time to move into the Sculpt section of the day. In sculpting, we haven't seen many updates in sculpting. This one is related to Sculpt because it only works on Sculpt mode so far, for now. Eventually it can work in other modes, but it's a feature that was actually added a long time ago in experimental mode, but now it's out of experimental. It's part of Blender 3, so it's gonna be, hopefully it's gonna be polished for other modes too, because the problem was that it was a bit too focused in Sculpt mode, and it would be nice to have a more generic approach. So what does it do? Well, you can have for example, let's say we have all these objects, you know, you are modeling. Usually when you're sculpting at the beginning, when you're just laying out your objects. Also, if you want to sculpt in a smart way to compensate for the not so smart Blender and the limit that you have in managing like the mesh amount of polygons that you have on screen, there is this new shortcut in Sculpt mode that allows you to switch between objects. You press the letter D with the mouse over that object and it switches. So you can sculpt over here, for example. Let's say I want to move, I press D, move this, D here. So yeah, this feature actually has been around for a while in experimental mode. Now it's out of experimental because it hopefully is going to make it to the final release. Look at this beautiful art I'm making. Super handy. So yeah, you're gonna notice that you're switching because the other objects are slightly dimmed, and I think there is a setting for that. It's an overlay, fade inactive geometry. Yes, it's a setting here in the overlays where you can fade the objects that you're not working on. So you can remove it if you want, just if you want everything, but then it's harder to know which object you are working on. So I recommend having it on. Maybe halfway. David is asking, will it also come to other modes like edit? In the idea is that was one of the reasons why it didn't make it out of the experimental mode, not experimental mode, experimental stage, because every time you think of a feature, it would be nice to have that feature in as many modes as possible, right, to make it consistent. So that is sometimes an issue, right? If you're a developer, you're working on one feature in one section, it should be available in as many places as possible with the same shortcuts. So you have to be aware of, okay, if this workflow good for other areas, is this workflow following the same wording, the same shortcuts, the same workflow as other areas. We had that in the past with like Grease Pencil, that sometimes because of the Grease Pencil team is very like focused in one way of working, or like because it's just 2D, right? It's very different. So sometimes some features could be either duplicated between 3D and 2D. So the team and the rest of the Blender team was very keeping an eye on trying to, okay, what is the equivalent in 2D to what we have in 3D, and just try to make it consistent, because then it pays off in the end. You can learn other areas of Blender without actually like watching a tutorial or anything. You can, if you know how to sculpt, you should know how to model. Or if you do animation in 3D, then animating in 2D should be the same shortcuts, same workflow. And then another smaller update is that the expand operator in the one that was added for 2.93, the menu entries, if you use it via the menu, which I wouldn't recommend because it really depends on the position of the mouse, so I would recommend just learning the shortcuts. The menu entries now use the same operator as the one in the shortcuts, so the new one. And it's time for mate, because I feel, I don't know if you notice, but my voice is crackling because I also do this on Mondays. So on the weekends, especially now with the quarantine, I don't get to talk much. So I spend 2 days without talking, and then suddenly, bam. So yeah, having some mate and warm water tea. I'm actually pretty much done. There is, speaking of Grease Pencil, there is this update that allows the reproject operator to work in multi-frame. So now it's not only the active frame, but multi-frame, so many frames. Ah, yes, did you know, Peter? Nice emoji. They added the emoji for mate. So that's how you can trust me that it's not some kind of weird drugs and stuff. It's just the day they added the emoji is like finally getting recognition for a beverage that is very it's very popular in South America. And even here, even in Germany, they have the Club Mate, but nah, that's just like mate, Red Bull, Mountain Dew. it's not warm, and it's carbonated. So side tracking. FFmpeg adjust default proxy settings. There are new settings for the proxies in FFmpeg. So these are default, so just as out of the box when you use Blender. The proxies now should take less space. That was the goal, to reduce the amount of like the proxies, because now they're automatically built. They can take a lot of space. So this update actually goes from, it reduces the proxy file size by about half without any impact on the coding, or no significant impact in the coding performance. That is super cool. Then again, 2 or 3 times smaller, but 8% slower. So yeah, slightly slower, although we got a lot of update improvements lately with the speed. So maybe it's a good what's the word? When you compromise, there you go. So yeah, at the moment it's actually slower with MJPEG, but it can be improved actually with fast decode in the future. But yeah, you know, MJPEG is like the fastest way if you want to. It's like RAW pretty much, so you know you're gonna get fast performance. Then I didn't save the commit for this one, but it's a improvement that is super good. Another quality of life improvement, and it was done by David Falk David, and I don't have the commit log here, or maybe I do. Maybe Falk David and then the name, because I usually save the name and the no, I don't find it. It's an update that makes it so when you tweak a number slider or a value slider, so this guy is over here, if you click a value but then you say like no, maybe not, and then you cancel, Blender used to recalculate everything. So it was very visible. For example, if you have a heavy, I don't know, let's say I have level 9 subdivision of subsurf, that's a lot. For example, just to make it obvious, if I now click in here to set the level and then it's like, oh no, I actually don't want to do it, and you cancel or you click away, the operator doesn't run, so it doesn't get slow. It used to. I don't know if you remember, but it was super annoying because sometimes you were like clicking by mistake or something, and then what if I know this is active? Yeah, this is instant, but not anymore. So super cool. Let's see. Wait, wasn't 6 the max subdivision level? Yeah, 6 is the maximum subdivision level in the slider. So when you move the slider, it's 6. That is called the soft limit. You can also find hard limits on any kind of buttons. For example, the hard limit is the actual limit inside of Blender, like under the hood. What is the maximum you can go? I think for I'm not gonna try it because we're streaming live, but it's usually around, I think it was 10 the limit or so. I think so, yeah. But yeah, how's everybody doing? Doing okay? Let's continue. I had a message. I had to check the messaging because Don wrote something, but it's something related to something else. I don't know, maybe I made a... Did I say too much about Friday's live stream? Did I give away too much? Blender, this is the fun part. This is like, I just had to write this. So somebody reported that a malformed BMP files leads to crash. So if you are... if you use BMPs, I don't know why you would still use BMPs when you can use PNGs. There are apparently reasons too, maybe compatibility with other softwares, but the crash has been fixed, so yay. And that is all for this week. I had another. Let's see if I can find this one, because there was... No, this search is terrible. No, it's a Python thingy that allows you to retrieve the exception when running a string. So this is for add-on creators. So when you have for example, a operator and then it throws an error, now you can catch that. You can retrieve the result and print it more nicely, so you don't have to just fail or do your own version of that report. Okay, I think I'm done with all the updates. 10 minutes to 6. That's super nice. Let's go to blender.community. Let's see if there is anything to answer. Blender, oh Jesus, 39. Come on. And oh wow, the Spanish Blender is also already made, but I didn't even make that. That's cool. Thank you. Let's see. All right, let's wait. It shows 39 comments, but here shows 43. So either you guys commented, either the number is wrong, which is possible. We are working on on the new Blender community, by the way. It's coming along very nicely. In the homepage, should I show you how it's... no, spoiler. But it's coming along very nicely. We have ideas, we have graphical, we have Blender.Today. Ideas, I say because internally right click select is called ideas, like Blender ideas. So that's why we have ideas, builds. We are preparing everything so we can have a theme community and add-ons community as on the launch day, on the day we launch the new website, which should be hopefully within the next month. All right. Maybe I shouldn't have announced things without checking with Francesco. The first question by Anse says, I was just wondering, what is the progress on Vulcan? Will it be ready for Blender 4? Will it only boost performance, or will it also help the simulation in other areas? Here we have LaPC giving a very clear answer. Mainly it's about multi-threaded, yes, support, future-proofness, compatibility with software, and it's, again, yes, exactly, it's designed as a much more low-level API. So actually you can do way more things, it's more low level, so you have more access to the hardware. You have better access to the hardware. So yeah, and support AMD GPU for what? For the viewport should work, yes, and ray tracing in the future, hopefully. But yeah, where was wondering what's the progress. I think Blender 4 would be maybe a good, I would say. When is Blender 4 coming? It's next year, right? No, the year after. We have now, we're gonna have Blender 3 in August or maybe later. It depends on Blender 3, because Blender 3 at the moment is planned as a regular release. Right now, every 4 months there is a new Blender release. Blender 3 is just one of them. Maybe the developers can extend it a little bit more, so to make Blender 3 more of a splash. But yeah, let's see. Momodron, it's not very happy with Blender 3. The name, don't call it Blender 3. It looks the same as Blender 2.93. Yeah, because it's, you know, you can have Blender 4 if you want. Just go to the code and it's a one line that you just change and it becomes Blender 4. It's really just a number. It's just a number. At some point, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, developers have to change the number, because once you change the number to Blender 3, all the files saved with that Blender version are gonna have, as part of that blend file, it's gonna say, hey, I'm saved with Blender 3. So in the future, they can compare and add or remove features or tweak values depending on that version. But at some point, you have to change the number, right? So that's why the number changed on Thursday. But then that's the beginning of the development. That's a problem with open source. With Blender, well, open source in general, is that it's so transparent that you lose the surprise factor. So yeah. Anyway, no light linking for Blender 3. How do you know? How do you know? There is still like many months for light linking. No improved compositing. Well, that's very vague, right? No rigging collections. That's also, come on. Interface groups looks the same. That is something that we can just appear, you know, people from the community sometimes just show up and do those more focused improvements. No texture payment improvements. How do you know that it's not going to get improved from now until August? There is so much time. No USD import and export. Have you seen all the improvements that they're in the current branch? Maybe there will be. No improved sorting of items. Again, it's too early to not to say that Blender 3 doesn't have all of this, because it might have it. You don't know. We don't know. Or maybe you do. Huh, no, maybe not. Oh, we don't know. But again, it's too early to say what Blender 3 has and doesn't have. Yes. File Happy 2020, that's a nice name. Hey Pablo, any chances to have adaptive tessellation in real-time Eevee, so it will take landscape project to the next level without relying on game engine to do the cinematic? I haven't heard any plans on that. I think the focus first is Vulcan, but I haven't seen any patches or development related to that. Would be cool though, and I think it's in the roadmap, but not anytime soon. This hi Pablo 14 Arianudin. I ask if this is real-time GPU smoke simulator could be brought to the attention to the V6. Have you mentioned it to him? No, actually I haven't seen anybody. And I haven't talked with him. I don't even know what is his status. Is he working currently, or is it? Because it's no longer working at the studio. He went back home. So but it's still working for Blender, so I didn't have access in contact. However, there is a dev talk presentation. Thanks, John. Presentation, like a thread. So maybe it's better to just approach it that. via the dev talk. Blender Defender. Hola Pablo, did you hear about the donut idea from Andrew Price? What do you think about it? Congrats for 800,000 subscribers. Yeah, congrats you, community. You didn't answer the question containing my app April Fool's. Here it is anyway. What is this? Blender Studio Alpha. Ah, this is April Fool, right? Yeah. Yeah, April Fool's. Quite I like the 7-zip with a password. Quite some work for you know, you went all in for Blender Studio Alpha. Wow. Yes, that people it's a joke. Don't don't take it seriously. It's not gonna be never gonna happen. Somebody mentioned this, yes, that he wanted to get well, so far he has 11,000 donuts. And wants to make a like a picture, like, where is it? Something like that sounds cool. Next, hello Pablo, two little questions. In the new collections tab in 2.93, are there plans to add more features than what we already have in the new collection tab? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for a couple of weeks I was thinking of per collection material override in there. Yeah, basically the section for collections in Blender is super new. It was added because of line art, but we need more options here. Absolutely. Having this in 2.80, like the very first version, even before 2.80 came out, there was this tab was already there. Actually, it was work in progress, but it was used for the overrides, and then overrides got removed, so it didn't make sense to have this dedicated section. Now it does, and it's even missing some options. Like, I remember I made a patch, I never put it in. Maybe I should do it for Blender 3. The colors, right? Collection colors, this should be here because you can change the colors, just to name a few. But yeah. Oh yeah, and I remember because these options, selectable and disable in renders, they're terrible names because these options are already for objects and they have a different name, viewport, showing viewports and render, so it's not very consistent. The second question, was there any discussion about the level of detail system, especially for the viewport with geometry nodes and the new switch node? That is part of the plan of like to answer that geometry nodes. Once we have the switch node, which we do now, but you could do it, but you're gonna need a bunch of nodes. When that node becomes more powerful, I think a level of detail should be pretty straightforward, because the geometry nodes, the switch, now what I was saying, yeah, because you have the east viewport, you have the geometry nodes, you can choose in the switch, so you can switch in objects. For example, you can switch between two different objects or two different collections depending on whatever. So yeah, I think geometry nodes is the answer for that. Slug Nugget says, picture this, Pablo, you're sculpting your high poly model using textures for that crisp detail, but oh no, I have the TikTok song, oh no. If you accidentally sculpt over somewhere you've sculpted before, the high frequency detail of the model turns on noise. Would it not be absolutely gnarly if the brush automatically masks the areas you sculpt after each stroke? Kind of like Auto Smooth works. I expect this can be done when brush nodes come along, but I'll be an old man by then. You're sculpting high poly, so where you sculpt before. Yeah, but then how can you detect that when you sculpt before is that you don't want to work there anymore? Like you want to discard, right? Like if you can skip sculpting in one area, and how would you know? How would Blender know that okay, this one is good, this one is just the one? Maybe it's an option of a brush to say that this is a one stroke only, or like a limit for the level of detail or amount of strokes. Yeah, you just need sculpt layers, which are coming, by the way, in the future, but they are coming. So yeah, maybe they are for Blender 3. Would that be a Blender 3 feature? Sculpt layers? Would that people be happy if Blender 3 was called 3, but it includes... It's going to include an asset browser. That's already pretty big. Let's continue. So Damian Winichenko asks, "Hey Pablo, how are you today?" I'm doing great. How's the lockdown situation in Amsterdam? Still lockdown? Today, tomorrow they're going to say we're going to share the news, but I don't really follow anymore. I just stay inside. Super boring. My congratulations on the next step of Blenders. Question: in one of your streams, you mentioned that the developers team have a discussion on some of the backward compatibility to be broken in Blender in future versions. What it would be? Could you tell me more about it? Some of the backward... No, it's mainly about... No, it's a general, in general, like Blender 3, changing big numbers like 2.8, 2.9, 2.7 to 2.8, it's always a good chance to break compatibility. It's not that you're looking, or developers are looking to break compatibility, but sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes there is really no other option than in order to improve and make Blender better for the future, you have to refactor, you have to rewrite some parts of Blender, you have to break, maybe if you render the same image in this version and in the new version, and there is a slight difference in noise patterns or texture slightly different, then it's better to wait for those changes to happen in a version, a big number change, such as 3.0. So at the moment, there, as far as I know, there is really nothing planned that would, like, that is deliberately planned to be, okay, broken in 2.9 compared to 3. So I wouldn't worry at the moment. However, keep stay in touch, because as soon as there is any breaking change, I'm gonna let you all know. All right, let's hello Pablo 3.0. What do you think of driver nodes and action constraint nodes? I would love that. That is a big project. I don't know what should come first though, like simulation nodes, like physics nodes, or driver rigging nodes, or collection nodes. Let me know what is like the type of node setups that you think is gonna be more useful. Modeling, procedural modeling, we kind of have that already with geometry nodes, but we're missing actual editing of meshes, right? Like extrude and more controlling the booleans and stuff. Darso says, well, actually here I'm approaching the ones that were just asked now, so I should go to the bottom, but since I'm already reading it, how Blender splash screen artists are chosen? Can any Blender artist get his artwork to be a splash art? Do you have to make some ritual to the Blender gods or something? Well, usually the current splash artist, like the one for the current release, has to pick or has to nominate a number of artists for the next release. Usually, like we try to give some guidance, like okay, we want to be like it's gonna be related to geometry nodes or to physics or whatever, but usually that's how it goes. For the previous splash screen though, we didn't we didn't have enough time to get in touch with the author and get feedback on which artist to pick. So during, like, Blender is very big on Twitter. Like, Blender community, it's very Twitter centered in a way. At least many of us spend time there, and if your artwork makes it big there, there is a big chance that yeah, it's gonna be seen. In the case of the artwork that I'm showing, that we chose for 2.93, we had multiple people reaching out to us saying like, hey, this is the art, this should be the splash, this would be like emails, and even Ton or other people in the team getting people in touch. And yeah, it's just basically the community pushing for it. And this case for the work by Erindale, it's just perfect. Just like you look at it and it's like, that is geometry nodes. Not only looks pretty and amazing, but it's a kind of artwork that we didn't have in the past, right? If we go to previous releases, we didn't have that kind of render before, or at least in the recent years. So it really fit with it. Actually, we had a flower in the past. It fit. It's the work that Erindale's doing on YouTube, teaching geometry nodes and proceduralism in Blender is just amazing. So it really aligns with what Blender wants to do and wants to promote. So it really is just, it was a no-brainer, and also was open to share the blend file here. So it was a win-win for everybody, for Blender to have amazing art, for Erin because working on Blender since forever, and give appreciation to these people that actually share their knowledge so much and for so long. It's always a good thing. So yeah, to answer your question, make some noise, make noise on the internet, and your artwork's gonna be chosen. In the past, it used to be a contest, but the problem is for the contest is that sometimes the best artists out there, they're too humble and they are not gonna submit their work for a contest if you make an open contest. So yeah, sometimes it's just better to just hang out, go to Twitter, and then go to like #B3D, and yeah, you're gonna get lots of great stuff going on here. Look at this. Look at that. Wow. Boom, boom, boom. That's amazing. It's just random. Thank you, Wanoko. I think I follow you, right? Yeah, I know. It's amazing art. I try not to click on profiles sometimes because there is a lot of content for adults being made with Blender, and sometimes I try not to do it live stream on a live. So yeah, let's go to the first few questions. Actually, let's do 5 more and that's it, because I'm already super late. Chris K. Hi Pablo, do you know if there is any plan for better anti-aliasing for Grease Pencil? Yes and no. Yes, because Grease Pencil is getting some love by Eevee, so it's gonna support shadows in the near future. So anti-aliasing could come with it, since it's mainly about integrating Grease Pencil into the Eevee pipeline, so that it was gonna bring a lot of things for free, you know, a lot of features like depth of field or shadows, and yeah. So it's maybe like it's the one feature that actually is gonna bring many features. Next, 2 questions by Marcelago. Do you know about any plans for dual-way coupling physics simulation? No. Are there any news regarding animation nodes, physics nodes? No, it's just that it's in the plans for the future, in the 3 series for sure. I don't know if Blender 3 or 3.1 maybe, but still needs to be decided to know what is gonna be in the coming versions, like in the next, geometry nodes or collection nodes, physics nodes in general. Sorrow Weaver, hey Pablo, I hope you're having a nice day. In the geometry nodes topic of the Blender Artist Discourse forum, I discussed hiding and exposing node values in the node editor. In the Sorcar add-on, there is such a feature. I was wondering if something like this could be implemented into all the node editors. Basically, only the essential properties are shown, but in the properties window, you can hide or expose those values. This will make the nodes a lot more simple for beginners. Yeah, actually, there is, yeah, you mentioned there is a feature already. And this was discussed, and there was even a prototype already by Jack Luke. Actually, he made a prototype about hiding and showing like less features, less options here, and then having them expanded, like showing all the features in the sidebar, or having some kind of toggle that will show or hide those. But yeah, the problem is discoverability, right? You don't want to, you need some kind of icon, you need some kind of indicator, maybe, or like a ellipse like here, and then some ellipse buttons like you can see more, because Blender should be usable by everybody. Sorcar add-on or many other add-ons, even like animation nodes, they are made for advanced, more advanced users, and sometimes you can expect, if you're using that add-on, you already know you can expect that you can have hundreds of of nodes, and they, yeah, there is a learning curve. I think Blender should try to be more conservative, and when doing that kind of hiding of settings, it should be a bit more explicit. So a little icon maybe to expand, or a, yeah, maybe a click. Yeah, you click and it actually takes you to the properties, you know, the same way you can show textures in the maybe. Yeah, needs to be discussed, because it's, again, it's not only for geometry nodes, it's for all kinds of nodes. Next question, Steve. Hey, Pablo, I hope you are well. I noticed they added a new section to the release pages called Core. Wonder if that means they are doing core work on Blender, maybe speeding up geometry editing. Core work on Blender has always been done, but now it has a module. Now there is a module, so that's what it means. That before it was just done by a group of people that have been using Blender and doing Blender work forever, but now there is an actual module with module meetings and plans, and performance is one of them. But yeah, performance for geometry editing is always in the roadmap. Thomas MCS, I think we're, how many questions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 5, and we wrap up. Hi Pablo, I come with some questions. Is it planned to make a real material manager with great icons? What do you mean great icons? Why Blender doesn't support drag and drop FBX OBJ? Because nobody did it. And this one is a very easy one for the community to pick up, I think. The current, like Blender currently supports drag and drop of object of blend files, right? You can have Blender. Well, again, it's not implemented. I think just nobody did it. But if you drag and drop a blend file, you have this menu. If I was a developer, I would go and look into this menu and try to make it work for FBX, OBJ, and so on. The problem is that those are add-ons, so you have to first check if the add-on exists and then show a message. But yeah. Then, is it planned to make a real material manager with great icons? I don't know what you mean with great icons. Great as in big, because the asset browser already contains for materials, when you have a material and you make it where is the materials? So instance cube. So when you have a material and you make that an asset, mark it as an asset, then this is the icon that gets received. And okay, this is not the most exciting material ever, but this preview should be enough. You can change the size, you can even greater, and make it creator even. Another one, actually it's many questions in one. Displace modifier links to displacement node in plan. Displace modifier link to displacement node. The displace modifier eventually will become, like many other modifiers, hopefully will become a geometry nodes modifier, so it is gonna be linked. I have some problems with material override when I reopen my scene. Do you know? Yeah, material overrides are not supported at the moment. It's a limitation for the time being, but it's coming. It's one of the most requested features in material override. Right. Time to wrap it up. I am way over time, so super exciting. Blender 3, improvements in geometry nodes, in Sculpt UI. Not as many maybe as other weeks, but it's a mix. You know, last week was Blender 2.93 beta LTS, so that takes time from the developers. Then Blender 3 alpha, so expect more. However, we're gonna see each other not on Monday, but first on Friday. So at the same time as always, 5 p.m. Central European time. Let's get together. It's gonna be a fun one. I'm gonna have guests for one, so I'm not gonna be all by myself. I'm gonna have the creator of Cycles and Sergey. So quite a reason to join again. This week, not next week. This week, same place at the same time on Friday. Tune in. It's gonna be pretty interesting. Thank you everybody for staying until the end of the show. I had a blast. Let's talk and see in a couple days. Bye. Okay, maybe not a couple, but 2 couples.